As I've been thinking about you, I've been thinking about a problem, a very particular kind of problem. And I think about this as the 10x dilemma. And some of your words fit right in with it. The 10x dilemma is, well, we can do it this way, like by a show of hands here. By a show of hands here, who is motivated, driven to be able to get better results? Maybe even significantly better results. Maybe even 10x results. Let's see, show of hands for that. Show of hands. Okay, I think it's every hand. Think every hand. All right, now let's ask a second question. Who here can work 10 times harder than you're currently working? Okay, any hands for that? Okay, I'm always surprised when any hands go up, but you know, almost no hands. And if you put those two questions together, then you have the 10x dilemma. Because if you try to achieve 10 times more by simply trying to do 10 times as many things or to put in 10 times as much effort, what happens is you don't get 10x results, you just burn out and still don't get the results that you wanted. And so my main position to you today is that what got you here won't get you there. And that's really non-trivial challenge, because you can't just do more of what you've done before. And I'm not suggesting you're not successful. To be in the room right now, you have to be successful. I don't even know if that is necessarily precisely how you feel. But if you don't feel successful, it really is probably because you don't quite appreciate the historical times in which we live. We live in times of unbelievable success. If you take anything like a long-term perspective, the level of success, and then of course, you're in a successful organization, and you're in a successful country, and in a successful time in the history of the world. And Buffett made this point recently. He said, if you're alive today, you have more opportunity, practical opportunity, than Rockefeller did. That's what 100 years of success has done. You have higher life expectancy than he had. You have greater opportunity to learn, greater opportunity to travel. So we have lived in this unbelievable era of success, truly. And so whether we feel it or not, because sometimes you just spend your life comparing and so on, whether you feel it or not, to be in the room right now, to be alive in this, and here, you are successful. You're part of a tremendous success story. So the question is, how do we get to that next level without burning out? And that's what I want to talk with you about today. Let's suggest it this way. What I want to share with you today is 5 things that will help you to break through to the next level of success, but without burning out. That sound all right? Are we okay with that as a theme? Snap if you're okay with this. Snap if you're all right. We're okay with this. This is okay. Now here's what I want from you. I could say that I want from you to be engaged the whole time, and that's true. But that's really minimum. I could say I want you to really be open to something beyond what I specifically say or what somebody else says. You know, you could be open to just your own conscience speaking something to you that really is a game changer. We could say that. But really, there's one more lever. And that is that I want for you to this moment take the role of a teacher of these 5 ideas. I'm going to share 5 tools with you, but even before you know what they are, what I'm asking from you is that you prepare yourself to teach it to someone else within the next 24 to 48 hours. I want you to take the role of the teacher, of the coach on these ideas. First of all, are you game for that? Are you open for that? Snap if you're snap. Okay. I got some people dancing at the back for that. We are on board. We are going to do this. Why does it matter so much to take that role as a teacher? Actually, I was going to ask that rhetorically. Now I really want your answer. Why does it matter to be a teacher even at the beginning of a learning environment? Let's have your thoughts on that. Why does it matter? One word answer is fine. Why is this important? Why does it matter? Go. What is it? Engage. You engage differently. Go. You listen completely differently if you know you've got to teach it yourself. It's totally true. I love that. More. Go. You have to understand it to be able to teach it. Yeah. You learn faster, learn more deeply, and it challenges what you don't know about the subject. And so it means that we are together both learners and teachers. And that's exactly how I feel. I want this. I hope it's already been signaled, not just a nice idea, but in the fact that we've already had a conversation. It's starting to be a back and forth. This is a conversation. I want to learn from you. I would like to teach you. I would like you to learn from me. I would like you to teach me. I would like for that to carry on. So this is the beginning. You are now empowered as the teachers, as facilitators for these 5 tools going forward. All right, that's some context, but let's get to a little more. Let's start with number 1, a word that has been something like destroyed over the last 100 years. We'll get to the word in a moment, but I want to express it by sharing a story. I got an email a few years ago from my boss at the time that said Friday between 1 and 2 p.m. would be a very bad time for your wife to have a baby because I need you to be at this client meeting. Friday comes along. Daughter's just been born. We're in the hospital. And I have my phone on and out. I have my laptop open, trying to do it all. Trying to keep all the client work happy, keep my boss happy. I was trying to keep my wife, Anna, happy, trying to be there for my child. I'm just trying to do it all on the basis that if I can do it all, I can have it all. And so to my shame, I go to the meeting. I leave my hours-old baby, go to the meeting. Even afterwards, I remember my manager saying, the client will respect you for the choice you just made. And the look on their faces did not evince that sort of respect, I'll tell you that. But even if they had, is it not obvious that I made a fool's bargain? That I violated something essential for something non-essential? And here's the lesson for me. Here's the lesson for all of us if we sort of smart enough to learn it on the cheap. If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. That's what I learned about it, but what about you? We've already been snapping, so let's do it again, but let's do it on these questions. If these are true for you, have you ever found yourself like I was, being busy but not necessarily productive? If yes, snap for that. Have you ever found yourself like I was, feeling stretched too thin at work or at home? If you have, snap for that. Have you ever found yourself like I was, let's say just trying to say yes to everyone and everything without really thinking about it? Snap for that. So I was falling into what you could call the undisciplined pursuit of more. And the antidote to that problem is the disciplined pursuit of less. And I want to emphasize it around a single word. And this is, let's say, tool 1. The word is the word priority. The word came in, priority came into the English language in the 1400s. And it was singular. And I just wonder, what did the word mean when it came into the English language? What did the word priority mean? Don't be shy, I want to hear from you. What did that word mean? Priority. Let's go. That was fantastic. It was like in stereo, we had 3 answers, all saying the exact same thing. Say what you said. The most important. More. Somebody else answered. Go. Same. Yeah, was it the most important? Just to be clear, how many are there? There's one. It's singular. The word is singular. It stayed singular, according to Peter Drucker, for the next 500 years. Which I think is pretty startling. That means that no one in the English-speaking world was using the word priorities until we entered the Industrial Revolution. And then I can just imagine somebody's in some, they weren't really in a Zoom meeting. I know when Zoom came out, but like you could just imagine somebody in some Zoom meeting where there's way too many people, and everyone's trying to discuss way too many things, and somebody's like, I know the solution to all of this. We'll just have priorities. We'll just have very, very, very many, very first before all other things. And I don't even know what the word priorities means sometimes. I never know what that word means. How can you have very many things before all other things? It's like the whole idea, the whole gift of the word is a single thing, the first thing, the priorest thing. And so let's say this is the first tool. The first tool is to be able to ask yourself the question, what's the priority? What's the priority of all the things I need to do today? Make the list, fine. I know you've got many, many more things than one thing to do. I do too, we all do. But you don't stop with just the list. You don't just stop with the reaction to all of this stuff. You say, okay, of all of these things, if I could only get one thing done today, what would it be? What is the priority today? What's the priority this quarter? What's the priority this year? You constantly come back in a disciplined pursuit of what the single most important thing is. This is the first tool. Okay, here's what we're going to do about that first tool. I want you to take just a moment to think about what I've shared and to prepare yourself to teach that idea to somebody else. How would you teach it? Who are you going to share it with? What will you say to them? How will you put it in your own words? I'm going to give you, let's say, 15 seconds. It's not long, but a little moment just to reflect on that. Write any notes if you want to. I want you to think about it. Ready and go. Okay, snap if you need more time. Snap if you've got something ready. Okay, so that's good. Okay, so I want you to take a moment to share one of your own thoughts. It could be a question, could be a thought, could be a story, a mini story. I want you to share something with the person next to you about the subject of if you don't prioritize your life someone else with, about the subject of priority being a singular idea, not about how many different things you can have. Visually, you can look at the idea here. You can have a million things where you're making a millimeter progress in a million different directions, or you can have the idea of a single essential intent. This is what I'm really focused on. This is what really matters. And then you can design everything towards it. You make a higher contribution, even though you're putting in perhaps the same level of energy, but you can make a far higher contribution. You're doing less but better. It's fewer things done better. This is the principle. Okay, you ready to share it? You ready to share something with your neighbor? Snap if you really want to do this. Snap if you really don't want to do this. It's a mix. Okay, I'm going to still give you it. 30 seconds, go. Share one thing that you have thought of from this first tool with your neighbor. Go. Don't be shy. Let's go. Be bold. I want to hear people doing it. Don't be shy. Don't be wimps about this. Did any of you do the assignment? Did any of you do the assignment? Or did you just use that time to meet each other, to say hello? Who did the assignment? Snap if you did the assignment. Look at you. I love it. Did you learn anything in the exercise? Did you learn anything? What did you learn? What came to your mind? Go, let's hear. You immediately found how bad you are at that. That's what you said. Do you relate to that? Do you relate? Snap if you relate to it. Go, carry on. You're immediately trying to work out what on earth, how would we think differently now? How would we be able to figure out what is the priority for the day, for the week, for the month, for the year, for your life even? What's the priority? Good, I love this. More, what else? Did you learn anything? Did you come away with questions, insights from the conversation you just had? Go. Yeah, your reaction is I don't even know this is, first of all, I'm not even sure, I can't even quite get my head around this because I have so many different responsibilities. How is it possible that there could even be a single thing? Right, and okay, so then there's the risk, of course, the risk or the challenge of saying, well, even if I get into prioritization, it's okay, I have an emotional priority, a social priority, I have a physical health priority, there's different areas of life, and then, okay, so if you have a spouse, okay, then there's that relationship, then you've got children, you've got friends, it's life is complex. How on earth could we simplify it to a single thing? So you're wrestling with that tension. Good, I think that's perfectly worthy. More, other thoughts, any other reactions, any other learnings, any discoveries you want to share? Go. What you're saying, what you just said there is you said, if I can get clear myself and I can communicate that clarity to others, you find other people quite flexible, open, willing to accommodate that, willing to negotiate it if they need to. It's like it's no big deal. But the challenge is somehow inside of you, there is this tension. I've got to do everything. It's almost like we're novices at this conversation at all. We're like, well, what would happen? Something terrible might happen if I suddenly said, well, this is really what I need to focus on today. It's like, so we don't do that. But you said as soon as you do, you go, oh, this is not so bad. This could be doable. This could be workable, even in my pressure, the social pressure I feel to do it all and be it all for everyone all of the time. Okay, more. Any others? Go.
When determining a priority, there's a constant tension between urgency and importance.
Go ahead.
There's a constant tension between urgency and importance.
Okay, so who relates to that? Of course, there's a difference. You have, well, what's examples of urgency in our lives that you feel every morning? What's your urgency producer? You're like, what's he asking right now? What's the first thing you do the first thing in the morning? Don't tell me you don't, because I know you do. Go. I check all my texts and all my emails. Don't you all do that? Someone right now is saying, I don't. They're saying, I don't do that. Not me. I did a thing one time with Steve Harvey. I did a few episodes with him with his show, and one of the things we did is I went to one of the people from his audience volunteered to be a guinea pig or something like that. And so I went to her home, and we were sort of analyzing her life and how non-essentialist it had become, and we went with the crew into each of the rooms, including into a bedroom, and I was like, oh, so where do you keep your phone? I sort of assumed it was in the room. That's what statistically most people do. She said, oh, I just keep it under my pillow all night. She said, if I get a text or an email at any time through the night, I just wake up, respond to it, and go back to bed. Right? Okay, so that's non-essentialism, right? That's the undisciplined pursuit of more. She's just living in the image on the left. But what I think is funny about that story in a way is all of us, we're all a little self-righteous about that story. Because we all go, oh my goodness, unbelievable. Under her pillow, can you imagine? I keep my phone a very healthy 12 inches from my head every night. And so there's something about the world we're living in that has normalized a certain way of thinking and living where the first thing we do in the morning, check the email. The last thing at night, check the texts and email. Maybe I'm not saying every person, I'm just saying every honest person here does that. Now, okay, so any more on that subject? Go. A little louder. Do we have another microphone? Can we make that happen? Okay, go, just carry on. Yes, things happening to you versus you making them happen. Whether you're reacting to other people's agenda for you, which is what you're doing when you check email. When you check email, you are checking somebody else's agenda for you versus you acting for yourself and figuring out what really do I see as essential, and let me at least be proactive about what I think the priority is right now. Good. Oh, I could keep going on this, but okay, one more then. Go. A little louder. When you're learning to prioritize, you're also learning to say no. Is that what you said? Oh, I'm so glad we took that extra comment, because that's the segue to number 2 tool. Perfect. The second tool I want to talk about is an inevitable thing. Once you think about prioritization, you're immediately confronted with the idea that you need to say no. That you cannot say yes to everything all of the time. Well, you can try, but then what happens? You make an inch contribution, it's a mile wide, you're just doing everything everyone else is doing. Strategy is what you say no to. Strategy is what you say no to. Here's another language lesson. We talked about priority. Here's one more. The word decide. Does anyone know this? The root meaning of the word decide, yeah, good, someone just did this, they know, is to cut or to kill. There's the word is CID, is the Latin term is CID or CIS, and it makes up words like scissors and fratricide and homicide. The sort of lost meaning of decision is what you say no to. It's not just what you say yes to. In fact, it's really not what you say yes to. It's all, you haven't said yes to something until you've said no to something else. Until you have made a strategic, deliberate trade-off. So let me ask you the question, what makes it hard to say no? Is it hard to say no? So snap if you find it hard to say no. Snap if you find it hard to say no. Okay, all right. So now why? Go. Guilt. More. Don't want to disappoint. It's similar to guilt. I like it. More. Who said something over here? Same one. More. Obligation. You're already committed. Lots of people expecting things from you. More. What's hard about saying no? Go. Lost opportunity. Yeah, an opportunity comes your way. A request comes your way and you think, well, that could be good. If I say no to that, I've missed out on something. More. Louder. Louder. You're prioritizing someone else's agenda. What do you mean? If you say no, you're prioritizing someone else's agenda. Oh, so if you say no to someone, they feel, and probably correctly, that you're not prioritizing their agenda, what's important to them. So how can you do that without it being awkward? Inherently telling them, you're not very important to me, or you're less important to me than these other things. So there's an inherent problem with that in the relationship. Any more? Okay, so here's how it seems to me. It seems to me that most people live in a way that they think that there are two buttons in front of them. They have the polite yes or the rude no. Now, if you did only have those two choices, which one are you going to choose more of, A or B? Yeah. And it's almost, it's like, I can't. And I'm not, by the way, suggesting you do press the button of the rude no. I didn't write a book called Noism, right? This is essentialism. But noism is a completely different thing. And I'm not advocating that you suddenly start saying no to everything and everyone without really thinking about it. It's not the undisciplined pursuit of less that I'm suggesting. It's to find the graceful no. And let me give you an example of this. I have someone who's a friend now. He's a CEO. It's a company called Uncharted. Uncharted helps nonprofit organizations to find funding to be able to pursue their strategic, objectives. And he got really into essentialism, and then he said, okay, what if the whole company could do this? What if I could bring everyone into the conversation? We could do it collectively, not just me and my own personal life. And it brings it in, everyone's reading the book together. Then they says, okay, they come to this point, they go, well, if it's true, we should be able to achieve more in less time. Right? We should be able to achieve, for example, 40 hours of work within 32 hours of work time. We should get 40 hours worth of output for 32 hours of input, or in another way, a 4-day work week. I'm not advocating that everyone has to do a 4-day work week. The illustration is still powerful, though. So they start an actual test. They bring in external advisors to come and measure their output. Day 1, 6 weeks later, and then 6 weeks later again. So it's a 90-day journey that they go on. And they gather the data of output and input. And at the end of the 3-month, 90-day experiment, they find that they are now achieving in a 4-day work week what they used to achieve in a 5-day work week. And this is how they create an ongoing policy. They make it the policy of Uncharted to be a 4-day work week. And what's the lesson? It's not just a general advertisement for how essentialism can impact a workplace. It's that too, I suppose. But more powerfully than that, he shared something with me that's so obvious, I feel silly that I didn't understand it before. I'd been teaching essentialism for years and years and had never understood this. And this is what they learned. The thing they did differently, there was one thing they did differently to before. And that is that they had conversations around priority. That's the difference. And it looked like this. Even as the CEO, he would go to people and he would say, here, this is something I'd like you to work on. But what do you have to say no to in order to say yes to this? And they would have a conversation. And he said about 60% of the time, he would back down, basically. He would go, oh, actually, you just keep working on that because that's more important than the thing I was maybe a little reactively asking you to do. 40% of the time, they would come to a conclusion, no, the thing I'm suggesting is more important, so we'll trade off differently and you can come back to the project you're working on. The conversation, this is the part I felt silly about, the conversation around prioritization isn't happening. I used to think it wasn't happening very much. After I understood this case study, I realized no one's even doing it. What people are doing instead is just sending an email and then sending another email and then, oh yes, I don't know if you saw my email on this day, but I'm just following up with you now. It's like just everyone's just asking again and again and again, and everyone's trying to reactively do it all. No one is saying, okay, if we could only do one thing, which one should we do? If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? The no is an inherent part of every yes. You say yes to one thing, to the essential thing, you will have to say no to non-essential things. It's sort of an inherent part of the reality of our lives. All right, back to the same idea before. I want you just to take a moment to think about how you might share this idea of saying no. Of saying no. Yep, get 15 seconds to think about it. How would you teach this to someone else? Would you teach it to someone else? Or you're worried about teaching it to someone else? How would you make this yours? That's it, go. 15 seconds to reflect. What did you learn? What did you observe? Go. You read all my books. That's a nice way to begin. I didn't hear that, but everyone laughed, and now I want to know what you said. No, I want to hear what you said. You like the accent. You listen to the books. Do you listen to them on like higher speed? Yeah, so then when you hear me speaking today, I feel not quite right, do I? You're saying that today it clicked in for you that the key to the discovery of what's essential is eliminating the non-essential. Is that right? Cutting out the non-essential is what you discover the essential, or you're able to focus on them? Both. Yeah, because when you say yes to a non-essential, you're saying no to the essential. That's the core idea. Every yes to a non-essential is a no to an essential. You're saying yes to something unimportant means that you're saying no to something very important, because we have such limited time and so many ways of using and spending our time. I love that. This is the key. You're saying it's a breakthrough moment. I love that. More. Any insights, any thoughts? What did you learn? Go. You're saying, just so that everyone can hear, you're saying that the communication element seems so vital now to you, because you're saying, of course I have to be open, I have to be honest, maybe even a little vulnerable to say, look, this is what I think really matters. This is where I'm trying to put my energy. Let's talk about it. Rather than just, oh my goodness, I think this is really important, but everyone's asking me to do this, or my boss is asking me to do that, and that's it. I just don't have it. I wish I could say something, but I can't say anything. It's like, no, I can say something. I have an obligation to say something. Good, more. Any other thoughts? Any learnings? Any discoveries about saying no? Go. Asking people, what's your priority? The CEO at PayPal went through a period of time when they were in their massive juggernaut growth where he said, I want one priority from every person every quarter. And everyone was put on notice, and so that he would just stop people in the hallway. Okay, what's your priority? What's your priority? And people had to be able to have an answer just ready to go, because what he observed is that without doing that, people could be doing 28 things and not one of them moving the needle. I'm so busy, I got so much to go on, all this stuff. And nothing really of the important work is happening. Have you not had days like that yourself, in which you were busy all day long, and at the end, when you're lying there at night, about to go to sleep, you're like, I don't think I really did the thing that needed to be done today. The important, the vital thing just got pushed to the side while I did all the other stuff that was pushing at me. What I was doing, I wondered if any of you were noticing or judging me as I was on my phone in the midst of the break. But I was looking for a note that I wanted to share with you. A polite no from my daughter. The situation was that I had tried, like a manager with a shiny new object, to get her to read a particular book all in one day today. So out of the blue. I'm like, okay, Eve, here's the book. This is such a good book. Just read it today. Just, forget everything else. Just read this. And she pushed back, not rudely, but we weren't having a meeting of the minds. And I went back into my office, and while I was on the meeting that I was in, she wrote and then slipped this note under my door. And I want to read it to you, and I want you to conclude this. I want you to explore. Do you like it? If you do, why? Is there anything portable, any learning that's portable in this little note? Okay. She was 14 years old. So that's dodgy age, isn't it? That's a dodgy answer to your question here. She wrote this. She said, I hate you, Dad. No, I'm kidding. She didn't say that. She said, I already expressed my unwillingness to read this book, but I'm willing to make a counteroffer. I am not willing to read it all in one day today, but I'd be happy to explore the possibility of reading it in the future, over the course of a few weeks. I believe it would be best to wait till the end of my literature assignment. If you would like me to read this book in place of a separate assignment and over the course of a few weeks, I'm sure that could be made possible. Do you like it? Why? What do you like? What's portable in that little note? What's that? It's kind. It's pushing back, but still kind. Go. She didn't say no. Actually, the most skilled essentialists don't say no very much. They don't need to use that word. They can still push back in a whole variety of ways. Oh, the entire English language is available to you, as long as you still are negotiating a no out of it. Okay, here and then here. Go. The power to think for herself. Keep going. More? I didn't hear it.
Power to think for herself and then to give it back about things.
Yeah, you're saying a lot of kids don't know how to express themselves, put those thoughts into words, express them so that somebody else can hear it. And maybe not just kids, maybe big kids like us too can struggle with this, to have the actual language of what to use. Before I forget it, I'm just remembering, I just did an episode. I have a podcast, and I did an episode. You can access it for free, but it's about how you can use AI to craft effortlessly polite no's using the NOPE method. NOPE. I don't know if you can't say some words you can't say in an English accent. Nope. It doesn't quite work, but still, that's what we used. Nope. And each of the letters stands for something. It's like exactly how to say no gracefully. Okay, there was another thought. Go. She put it back on me. Yeah, she put it back on me to deal with the inevitable reality of trade-offs. Every yes is a no. Actually, every yes is a no to many, many things. That's why we have to learn the art of the slow yes and the fast no. We have to learn we have to really become aware of all the essential things we're saying no to every time we say yes to things. This is the idea. Is there one more? Do we have to go? She sell out herself for you, and she also didn't get rid of her need for her own. Yeah, she didn't have to violate, she didn't have to capitulate to me, and she didn't have to, it wasn't just out and out conflict. Conflict maybe is okay. It just didn't, it was respectful of both herself and me. And we could call, of course we could call this like a win-win, but I want to encourage you, if you're going to think down these lines, I wonder if this deserves to be its own tool right now in our conversation. It might be. Okay, I think in the interest of time, we're going to have it as a third tool. Okay, so now let's talk about a tool. I've just been able to articulate this fairly recently, so it's neither an essentialism or effortless, but it's a very simple but powerful tool for communicating with people in just the way you described. So in a sense, I'm now taking what we just did with Eve, and I'm putting that story, Eve's note, and I'm putting it together with your comment with this 2x2. And I want you to draw this out. This is good. I'm very proud of this. Okay, 2x2. Draw out a 2x2 for those of you that have a pen in front of you. 2x2. Okay, come on. Everyone move it. No one's moving. You don't have any pen or paper, do you? Everyone's like looking awkward on that row right there. You're like, nope, nobody told us that we'd have to take notes at a presentation. Okay, very fair enough. Okay, anyone that can write it out, you're going to draw it out. Here's the 2x2. At the top, okay, top left quadrant, left for you, yeah, top left quadrant, this is your win. This is your desired result. What do you want? What's important to you? What's your priority? Okay, that's your win. Next quadrant to the right is their win. What do they want? What's essential to them? What's important to them? Their win. Yeah? Okay, so that's kind of that's sort of the obvious. But here's the additional piece. It's what can't you lose? Can't lose. What is a deal breaker for you? I cannot lose out on this thing. Can't lose. And same for them. What can't they lose? All right, now, this is why it works like magic. Because the research into how people... there's a piece of research that was done that analyzed all of the other research that has been done on a single theme. So it's a meta-study. And in the meta-study on this theme, the article is called Bad is Stronger Than Good. And what they found is they studied the subject matter of risk aversion, of loss aversion, compared to gain, potential, is that across every single industry they studied, in every single field of academic research, they found a consistent pattern, and there's almost no evidence to thwart it. So this is very unusual. You don't often find this in any of the social sciences. You don't find it in really any of academia, that you find a single rule that will prove true in everything. And they summarize it, as I already mentioned, in the idea good is stronger than bad. And what it means is, like, for example, if somebody says to you, if they give you a criticism, you'll remember that even if they gave you 2 or 3 compliments. The criticism will last a lot longer. Who relates to that? Have you related to that? You've had that moment. Snap if that's true for you, right? So what it is that we're far more... So if somebody comes along and says, okay, we're going to change something, almost everybody in the room, hey, we're going to change the organizational structure. People don't go, oh, fantastic. I wonder what I'm going to gain from this. Everybody goes, oh, what does that mean for me? What am I going to lose? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my position? Am I going to lose the people under me? Am I going to lose everyone? So loss aversion is stronger than the potential gain. Much stronger. Sometimes twice as strong. Sometimes 5 times as strong. That's the range. Okay, so this means when you're in a negotiation around what's important, let's say, it's not sufficient to identify what you want and what they want. It's a good place to start. But what really is going on, what's really awkward for everybody, what people are feeling more vulnerable about but are less likely to talk about, is the risk of losing something. And your job is to try to bring that into the conversation. Look, this is what I really can't lose, and I think this is what you can't lose. Tell me where I'm wrong. Now, you can't dictate all this, but you can just draw the whole thing out and say, is this what you want? This is what I think I want. Is this, what can't you lose? What can't I lose? This creates psychological safety, or in a better term for that, is permission for candor. Permission for candor. And in permission for candor, it's like you're creating a playground for people to be able to have a conversation they can't otherwise have. There's a story that was told. I don't know that it's a true story. I can't ever find an original citation for this. So it may be just sort of an allegory. But the story goes like this. There's a school, and there's a really dangerous roads next to the school. And all the children play close to the school building because it's so dangerous. And then somebody comes and they put up a boundary, they put up fences, and now all the children play in the entire space. They're safe from the roads. The boundary makes it safe. Now, it's just a story. Let's say it's just an anecdote. But the idea is, if you can make it safe to have permission for candor, to be able to talk about what's important to you and what can't you lose, what's essential to you that you can't lose. If you can get clear about that for you and for them, now you've created space to actually have the critical conversations necessary to be able to get to clarity about what you're going to do, what you're not going to do together. Does it make sense? Snap if it makes sense. All right, this is tool 3. This is tool 3. It's a can't lose matrix. Because what I have discovered really over time is that to live essentialism or to live effortless in practical terms, you must upgrade your social ability. You must increase your emotional intelligence. Because you need to be able to have conversations you couldn't have before in order to be able to actually implement these ideas you couldn't do before. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? All right. 15 seconds to think about tool 3. This is Eve's story, the can't lose matrix, and the ability to be able to make it safe to have conversations you couldn't have before. So that there's permission for candor. I want you to take just a moment, 15 seconds, just to think about that. Sort of, what does that mean to you? How could you apply it to you? What would you be able to share if you were sharing it with somebody else? Okay, ready to do it? Snap if you're ready? Yeah? Snap if you'd rather not do that. All right. You had your chance. All right, 15 seconds, go. Okay, what is one thing you learned? What is one insight you gained as you were sharing? What is one thing you could share with me? Let's go, don't be shy. What's one thing you could share? What's one thing you learned? Go. Your boundary and their boundary could be really different. How close do you want to get to the road? It may be different, and you have to build a lot of, you have to have skill to be able to help people open up, to share a little more vulnerably yourself. I know somebody in my life, he really wants me to be vulnerable, really wants me to be open. That's fine, but he never shares anything vulnerable in his life. He's a man who can never show weakness. This is not a recipe for helping us to be able to have a real, deep connection. More. Other thoughts? Go. Strategy is key. Okay, I agree with you on this. More. Okay, well, good. More. Empathy makes this easy. It's all about empathy, right? It's all about this, I mean, a concept that I really love is the idea of 3D empathy. And 3D empathy is very different than just sort of feeling, oh, I wonder what they might be feeling. You know, that's still, you're still in your own frame of reference. But if you have 3D empathy, what happens is that you are shelving your agenda and entering theirs fully. And when you enter somebody else's world fully, it's the most vivid, extraordinary, life-reaffirming experience I am aware of. To really exit your own agenda. My experience is that people everywhere are stuck in their heads. And it's almost like we're living in a perfect storm for this. There's so many forces, the overwhelming, it's like we're not in an information age anymore, it's an influencer age. It's not just that there's information overload, it's opinion overload. And in that environment, we're just so constantly bombarded with things, it actually strangely forces us back into our heads as we look for simplistic narratives to make sense of our world. And it all keeps us stuck in our heads. And what we have to do is to be in this little tool is to get out of our heads. Yes, you've got to be clear yourself, get clarity yourself, but you have to enter somebody else's world entirely, see their world. 3D empathy, I think, is a powerful idea, to be able to visualize the world they're living in, so that you can be inside of it, and then with that insight, create something that actually works for everybody. Good, I love this. More, other thoughts, other reactions, other insights, learnings you had as you think about this tool 3. More. All right, we're going to move to tool 4 then. I'm putting this up here because I want to sort of give us a sense of where we are. We've covered 3 tools, but they're within us. They explore what's essential, eliminate what's not. And now I want to move for a couple of tools within this final execute, because execution isn't just, like, there's different ways to think about execution. And one of the reasons I wrote Effortless is because it's not enough to know what the right things are. You need to do them in the right way. You could do you for example, could become an essentialist and really know what's essential, but then if you do it in the wrong way, you could still overcomplicate your execution. You could say, I'm trying to think of now practical examples, but like I was coaching a manager who was the kind of insecure overachiever that she would be up at 4 a.m. in the morning photoshopping for a youth activity the next day. Nobody's asking her to do that. She just thinks that's what she has to do. She said, if I eat lunch, I feel guilty. Not if I take time out to eat lunch. If I even eat lunch, I feel guilty. She's got this idea that maximum effort equals maximum results. Actually, what I want to suggest to you is that you probably do too. We probably, all of us do. It's quite a persuasive idea. If I put in more effort, I get better results. And we all know that's true. But it's an idea that has a certain utility to a certain point. But then more effort could sabotage your success easily, often. You get past that point of optimal returns, and you get suboptimal terms, even negative returns, even though you're pushing harder. And this is exactly what her life had become. I said to her, what I want you to do is invert the idea. It's like, I don't remember this Seinfeld episode. Do you remember that George Costanza, he has the opposite day? Remember the opposite day? I don't know if you know it, but he's like, I'm going to take every intuition I've ever had and reverse it. I'm going to do exactly the opposite of what I think will work. And he goes from effectively being sort of a selfish loser to being effective and successful in one day. And he's just like, I can't believe it. Everything, I would never normally go and talk to that woman, but now I'm going to do it. I would never go and ask for a raise or ask for a job, but now I'm going to do it. He did exactly the opposite. And that's to say effectively what I was asking her to do, because she was so deep into this idea of maximum effort equals maximum reward. You know, you've heard the same ideas, right? No pain, no gain, 110% effort. You've got to do everything. Given those speeches, maybe you've given those speeches before, you've certainly heard them from somebody. Well, this is going to be important, but it's going to be so hard, so tough. And this is the kind of mindset that was sitting in her head. I got to do everything all the time if I want to maximize my contribution. And that's not true at all. It's not right at all. A much closer principle is what I would call now the 85% rule. If you want to get maximum results, you need to put in optimal effort. It's not at the 100% level. It is not. That is wrong. We've been taught it. We may believe it. It's wrong. The data does not support that conclusion. However often the 1980s motivational speakers reiterated that it was true, they were wrong. The fastest sprinters are the ones that operate at an approximately 85% level. The best, there's a champion right now from Norway, incredible runner. He's breaking every Olympic record, every world record. He trains twice a day with his father. I'm not suggesting he puts in no effort, but they operate in this way where they're not doing it so easy that it becomes painful. sometimes when you do stuff that's too easy, it actually isn't effortless. And then there's the other extreme where you say, I'm going to do it till I collapse. And they never train at that level, ever. They just train at the optimal pace, that a degree below something like your maximum. This is the 85% rule. I said that to her. I said, listen, this is what you need to do differently. Next time you're asked to do something, don't try to do 110% on it. Do 85%. Do a little less than you actually want to. She gets a call from one of the other internal clients that she served. He said, listen, I need you, it was an educational institution, I need you to have your videography team come into our office, to my classroom, and record my semester. And she immediately went into her old gear. If I'm asked to do X, I'm going to add, Y and Z. I'm going to wow him. I'm going to do all these extras. I'm going to maximize it all. And then I'm going to have a whole team of people. We'll video every angle. We'll cut it all together. We'll add in the slides. We'll put some music, some intros, outros. And then she remembers the coaching, like invert. How could this be effortless? Is there a different way than I would normally do this that might get him the result, but at far easier cost? And when she asked that question, she's like, well, hold on, who's this for? Oh, it turns out it's for one student who's going to miss a few classes because of an athletic commitment. And so they come up with the idea, well, why don't you just have someone record it on their phone whenever he's going to miss and just send it to him? He's like, oh, yeah, head slap moment. I hadn't thought about that. That's a great solution. It was a 10-minute phone call. Saved her 4 months of work for her whole team. And the result was better than if she'd spent the 4 months doing it. This is the power of the invert. So the fourth tool that I'm talking about today is to invert. That is to invert the idea that maximum effort equals maximum reward. It does not. Optimal effort equals optimal reward. I can go a little deeper on it, I think. Have you heard, for example, of the race to the poles? Has anybody read the book, Race to the Poles? Anybody here? This is in the great age of exploration, the 1850s. At the time, of course, there wasn't a space race. There wasn't a goal to put a man on the moon. But there was a goal to be the first person to ever get to the South Pole, because nobody in all of human history had done it. No one had gone there, not the Vikings, in all their tremendous, discovery and exploration the world over, not the British Navy. Nobody had ever got a person to the South Pole. And lots of people had tried, and everyone was really, animated about this. So then we get this perfect matched pair test. You have one team setting off on one day and another team on almost the same day from a different location towards the South Pole. This is a massive trip. It's like a 16,000-mile trip all in all. And they set off, and the race has begun. And it's so curious. Will they do it? And who will be first? If they do it, the British team, the expedition leader had a mental model just like this manager I was telling you about. Maximum effort. Put everything in. That looked like this. Day one, let's go 50 miles if we possibly can. If the weather conditions are good enough, we'll push, not 30, 40, 50 miles if we can, to our limit. Why? Because he's trying to get there fast. And he believes, and there's a certain kind of deceptive logic there that makes you think, well, if you want to get somewhere fast, you have to go as fast as you possibly can every single day. That's obviously how you'll get to a place faster than your opponent. And that's what they do. Day one, they try and do it. Day two, they max out. Day three, they max out. And then what happens is they have a bad weather day. And when they get the bad weather day, suddenly they are burned out before the day begins. They've just maxed out through the good days. And the bad day, they try to make progress. They go a few yards. They can't do a thing. They got no emotional resilience left. And so they just quit, go back to the tent. They hunker down for the whole day, the bad day. And of course, now you're making no progress on the bad weather days, so that's not great psychologically. And so they're writing in their journals, oh, we have the worst weather of anyone who's ever tried this. They're wrong about that. It feels right, but they're totally wrong. Even the trip that they were basing their own plans on had worse weather days than they had. But they felt like their luck was against them because of their strategy. They were pursuing, without realizing it, a boom and bust strategy. If you boom, if you try to go the 110% thing, you are also creating a second reality, which is that you will bust. Because you can't do it, you can't go at the max forever. Whatever anyone says, whatever all of these, what we could say, these bros online that are trying to say it all the time, you can just, the bro hustle culture. It's just nonsense. It's not based in any data whatsoever. It's just a story. It's just a narrative. And they're wrong. Well, this is what's going on. They say, they wrote in the journal one day, I wonder if no one could make progress in weather like this. Well, one team could, and that was the Norwegian team, who had a leader who had a completely inverted mental model. His was optimal, effortless pace. His rule was 15 miles a day. Day one, they could have done much more than 15 miles. But they're like, no, we're stopping at 15. Day two, same, 15. Day three, and of course it goes on. First bad weather day, 15. Now, it was harder on that day, but they had enough in the tank to be able to make the next 15 miles. Now, this is how it proceeded until the plot thickens. The Norwegian team gets within 45 miles of the South Pole. Complicating the decision, it's perfect weather and perfect sledding conditions. It's almost flat. So now they could make the full 45 days in one big push, one day. And they don't know where the British team is. For all they know, the British team is ahead of them. Now here's the question. I want you to say it out loud to me. Would you push? Would you pace? Be honest. Everyone, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I should have said that differently, shouldn't I? I said, everyone push, say push. Everyone pace, we're going to say pace separately. Okay, so everyone push, everyone say push, say push. Everyone would pace, say pace. Okay, so we got scientifically, very accurately, 75-25. That's what I read. We're going to quote that now. I would push. If I'm honest, I would push. And I know the story, and I know the data. But I also must be still deeply entrenched in a certain logic. Here's what happened. They took 3 days, averaging another 15 miles per day to get to the South Pole. They beat the British team by more than 20 days. Nobody thinks that's what would happen. No one believes it. Because we're so entrenched in let's say, an outdated mental model that is wrong, but is persuasive. I just wrote an article about it for those, maybe you already read it. I sent a link earlier, so maybe you saw it, the 85% rule, HBR. It's worth reading because it covers some of the data to support this 85% rule of management, how it applies as a manager. And that's worth us thinking about it, because we're not trying to create laziness. We're trying to create effortlessness. And that, of course, is a different proposition. There's more to the story, though. Not only do they thrash the British team by this steady, consistent approach, they also have the vitality left to make the 16,000-mile journey home. That's a non-trivial problem. It's not just getting there first. You have to get back alive for it to matter, for it to be called a success, let's say. The British team also got to the South Pole, of course, later, exhausted, dejected, burned out. And not one of them made it back alive. We know of their stories only because later their tents and their journals were found. They all died on the way home, because a boom and bust approach is so suboptimal in every field of human endeavor. When I read the biography that I'm describing here, Race to the Poles, I came across a term the biographer used to describe the progress being made by the Norwegian team. And even though it fit beautifully the argument I wanted to make in Effortless, I still was incredulous to read it. He said they made progress day after day without particular effort. That is an unthinkable thing to write. It's the most arduous physical endeavor the world could imagine. This is why it was so, so consuming to the people at the time. was that it was so physically impossible. And yet he says they achieved that objective without particular effort. Think on it. And what does it mean for you? Let me suggest again, the idea is to invert. Invert the idea that you have to put in maximum effort to get maximum results, and instead say, how can I make this effortless? What would be the effortless pace to achieving this? What might my upper bound be on whatever goal I'm trying to achieve? What's the lower bound? On anything you're trying to achieve, what's the upper bound and the lower bound? And you make the upper bound really achievable. Maybe it's a little stretch, but no more than a little stretch. Maybe this is a not a trivial example, but a really different example than the one we've been talking about. But maybe you have been one of these people who have tried to start a journal in your life. Have you ever started a journal and not kept it consistently? I mean, we could use other examples. We could say exercise too. We could use many, many examples. But just think about the journal process. You say, okay, day one, I'm doing this. You buy the journal, you get the journal, you get the pen, you get the place, you sit it, you write a veritable essay. It's 3 pages long. It's good. It takes you, the whole thing takes you half an hour. Maybe it takes you an hour. You're really into it. Day 2, you're like, oh, I don't know, an hour? I don't know about it. I'll do it tomorrow. But day 3, you've got yesterday's hour plus today's hour. You're like, this is way too much. And you're dead before you began. The habit's over. You've never even made it into a habit. So I had a similar sort of pattern over years. I became a bit more consistent. And finally, I was like, no, we're going to have an upper bound, lower bound. It has to be an effortless pace without particular effort. My max was 5 lines. No more than 5 lines a day. No less than 1 line a day. Right? So that's an upper bound, a lower bound, just like the story of the race to the polls, but a specific example, in a practical situation. And so since then, I've never missed a day. That's like 12 years now, right? I have not missed one day in 12 years because it's effortless. Now I'm not so worried about it. I'll write more. But even now, if I get behind a little, I'll just do 1 sentence for each day. So you never miss a day. And the consistency wins for you. So discipline, this kind of consistent discipline is so much more valuable than going maxed out when you have the motivation and minimum effort when you have no motivation left. You're trying to be consistent through it, an upper bound, a lower bound. Okay, that is tool 4. Any thoughts or questions about tool 4 before we move on? Go.
I think it's important to understand why Amundsen did that. He learned from the Eskimos, having spent 3 weeks in the Arctic, that sweating is what kills you, and getting cold.
Can you hear this all? It's a great insight.
So it fits very much with...
Could you hear at the back? Okay, here's the idea. He said, the point is, it is important to understand why Amundsen did this. He said he learned from the Eskimos who he'd spent 3 weeks with, 3 years with, that the sweat is what kills you. Carry on.
So,
The sweat is what kills you. That's great.
as well. But positive psychology uses flow states and trying to find a flow state, which is that effortless effort. And if we think about this consistent discipline, what we're really trying to do is put ourselves in a flow state.
I agree. I agree that it's very consistent with the flow state, research that's been done. We're trying to find that effortless effort. We're trying to be able to make progress without using up tomorrow's energy. You're trying to leave something in the tank every day so that tomorrow you can win. You're trying to play the game of life, whether it's of management or of business or the strategy of your life, in a way that it's like a pinball machine where you get to play the next game rather than, hey, I've got to max everything and then I don't have anything left in the tank to go. If you want to go from here to the next level up, you've got to find a way to make it as effortless as possible. Effortless doesn't mean lazy. Like literally it doesn't mean that. You look up the words, that's not the same thing. Effortless is to do something without effort. Lazy is not to be willing to put in effort. This is not the same thing. You're trying to find an effortless place so that you can win and outperform other people. We could riff on this for quite a long time. Let's move to tool 5. Tool 5 is like a way of rethinking simplicity. Most people, so one way to think about essentialism is focus. One way to think about effortless is simplification. right? One's about focus, one's about simplifying. One's about knowing what's essential. Effortless is about doing it in a way that you can keep doing it and keep winning in it. So when we think about simplification, what I've discovered is that most people have a mental model about simplification that is exactly opposite of what the great simplification leaders do. And I'll get to exactly what that is in a moment, but let me illustrate it with a case study. If you can imagine Amazon way back in the day, 100 employees. They take the number 2 employee and one of the first engineers, and they set them on a task. And the task is a non-trivial problem for Amazon at the time. At the time, e-commerce is brand new. Nobody is. Everyone's like open to the idea, but starting to be open to it. But you get on, maybe someone goes to the site and they find a book and they go, yeah, I want it, and it's a good price, and I'm even maybe willing to entertain doing this. And then they get to the checkout process. I say process because it wasn't a page. All of the major websites at the time had like 28 clicks involved in the checkout. You know, put your name in, click. Next name, click. Put in your first line of your address, click, 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 click. And in the process, because people are already anxious anyway, it gives them a lot of opportunity to think, I don't know if I really want to do this. Maybe I'll just go to Barnes & Noble and just solve this. Okay, and so there's a huge drop-off, which is making Amazon's business strategy questionable. So they tasked this engineer, simplify the checkout process. He works on it for 2 months, and he's a smart guy. I interviewed him personally. He doesn't work for Amazon anymore, so I thought that was helpful to be able to get his perspective as to what he thinks about it all. What he was trying to do is what almost all of us do when we're trying to simplify. We try to take something that's complex and remove something. Try to streamline a piece of the process. Try to, what if you could do this in one field instead of 2 fields? And they go and have a meeting to see how it's going. And so he's got Jeff Bezos there, and he's got the second employee, and there's him. And they're having they're meeting at the brewery in Seattle, Washington. And somewhere in that meeting, Bezos finally turns to him and says, look, I'm not trying to simplify the checkout process. I'm trying to eliminate it. I'm not trying to do 27 steps seamlessly. I'm trying to do 1 step. And the engineer, this is the lesson. The great simplifiers, those that really have mastered this, they don't take complexity and try to go to simplicity. They start with 0 and say, can I do it in a single step? And that mental shift is such a beneficial tool if you want to go from your current level of success to another level. It's like you have to, whatever you're trying to achieve, you go, okay, start from 0. Can we do it in 1 step? Jobs did it as well. Steve Jobs did it when he was trying to create the DVD, what was it called now? Maybe somebody can remember, but the DVD burn, what was it called? Come on. Anyway, it's when he was first building the new Mac, when he came back after having been fired, and he's gone for 10 years, and he comes back, and they're trying to introduce the DVD burning is a standard on the Mac. And at the time, if you wanted to burn a DVD, you had to pay like maybe $65,000 for a machine, and it was a very, sort of elite and selective, industry-specific mechanism. And so then Apple buys one of these companies that had this technology and has the software, and they bring them in, and they're given weeks to prepare for a meeting with Steve, and they already know his reputation is like seriously into simplicity. And so they take this 5,000-page manual they have, if you can even imagine, and they're like, we are going to simplify this. Watch this. And they get it down, simplified down and down and down. They're so proud of it. And the slides they think look so minimalistic and they're so terrific. And then they wait for the meeting and they're sitting all there as a whole team. And then finally Steve comes in and he just kind of interrupts the whole process. And he goes to the whiteboard and he draws out a rectangle and he puts one button and it says burn. And he says, we're going to drag the item into the rectangle and press burn. That's the application we're going to build. And at that moment, they stopped. They were like, we're never showing these slides to anyone, ever. Our complexity is so much greater than how he's coming. I talked also to to one of the people in the room when that happened. And that's actually the way the language comes from, although it makes the point I was making from Bezos. That's the one person who put it into language. He starts from zero. He's not going, let's take a 5,000-page manual and turn it into a 20-page document. He's saying, let's start from zero and see if we can do it in one step. And in every organization and in every life and in every family, you have all this scar tissue of complexity that's growing up all the time, and you start having to do everything you've ever done before and keep adding and adding and adding. And the idea is if you just start from zero and say, okay, what am I really trying to achieve? What is essential? And can we do it in one step? It is a radically improved way of thinking about simplification. This is our fifth tool. Are we done okay so far? Do you feel you could teach these ideas to other people? Do you think you could share them? Are you willing to still? It's really important because the conversation, for it to become anything like a movement, even in your own life, you'll need to teach it and share it with other people. Get people involved in it so that you can create something special, so that you can go from where you are to the next level, because what got you here won't get you there. I'm thinking, but I don't know on time, so I'm looking to you to confirm, but I just thought about maybe just one bonus. Is it all right? So, well, let me just do this. Maybe we can continue the conversation elsewhere. Let me just say, well, let me say this. The daughter that was 14 in that little note that we talked about earlier on, right after writing that note, I wasn't going to share this, but let me just share a simple version of it. She started to just, at first we thought it was age-appropriate behavior. She just started talking a little less. Less emotionally rich. Took longer to do her chores and so on. But what began as sort of just seemed like age appropriate turned out to be a free fall in her cognition. For months, we're going to neurologists. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. Most of them cannot even begin to tell us even the beginning of a diagnosis. And so it's like, this is the stuff suffering's made of, right? Like She's on the road to becoming fully comatose. The whole right side of her body isn't working anymore. She takes hours to eat a meal. She answers anything in one-word descriptions. You can tell even just from that note that she was capable and intelligent and physically extremely active on a rock climbing team and so on. And all of that is falling away. And she is on the path to dying, and we have nothing we can do about it. And in the extremity of that, we learned something that perhaps we couldn't have learned any other way. And so I give it to you as a sort of bonus tool here. What we had believed before this, what I had believed before this, was that we're supposed to be grateful in life, and that what gratitude is being thankful for the good things in our lives. And frankly, I think that most, if not all of you, have been taught exactly that. Like it's not even a strange, it's like a strange statement to say that I used to think it meant that. That's what it means. As far as we're all concerned, that's what it means. Be grateful for all the good things in your life. That's what you do on Thanksgiving, which I love. Wish we had Thanksgiving in England. It's a great holiday. I'm all in favor of it, right? No presents, all gratitude. It's all good. But what I learned in the midst of this extremity is that that's wrong. And actually, it's definitionally wrong. If you just look up the definition of gratitude, you do not find that the definition is to be grateful for all the good things in your life. It's not what it means. It is to be grateful for all the things in your life. And that is, as far as I can, I like think about it now this way, like it's radical gratitude. Even though really it's just what the definition of gratitude is, I think about it as a radical idea. Because as soon as you say it's to be grateful for all the things in your life, you start having to say something like this: I am grateful that my daughter is going through a discombobulating and undiagnosed mental condition because, and you don't have an answer for the because. So it sort of becomes like an act of faith or something, because you express something that you don't feel yet, but you act as if it's true. you take that as if it's true, and then you suddenly discover, and what we found the moment we started doing that was it was like almost a magical force at play. We suddenly had more energy, more positivity. We could see things we couldn't see before. They were hidden from sight before, but we could, and we were as a family, we would still manage to laugh again and sing again and be together, and that put us into an effortless state instead of an absolute state of suffering and agony. And that meant we could actually discern again and figure out what to do and what not to do, and to be able to find the right person and discern the right neurologist and so on. And all of that was starting to be warped and pulled away. What I learned was that if you focus on the things you lack, then you lose what you have. And if you focus on the things you have, you gain the things that you lack. If you're grateful for it all, things just start to work in your favor. It's almost like justice has to catch up with you because you're being grateful even for the tough things. It makes you, I think, invincible because you can turn any negative into a positive. I think it's that kind of power. It certainly was key to the momentum changing. As of today, Eve is back. She is healthy again. She's whole again. She is well again. She had encephalitis, which is inflammation of the brain. And it took her years, but she is fully whole and healthy again. But the shifting point, the tipping point, was radical gratitude. To me, there's something in that story of all the other tools we've talked about today. And I share it with you because I've been thinking about you. And I've been sensing you even in the room. And so, if you can, take it as a compliment that I've shared it. Because to me, these are the subjects, these tools, plus this bonus idea. These are tools that are important. These are tools that matter. And that's what I've been thinking about as I've been thinking about you. Thank you.